Is the Fort Myers housing market crashing? Well, when active inventory is up over 80%, people start asking some serious questions.
In this video, we're going to talk about what's really happening in the market. We're going to show you the numbers, and we're going to discuss what this means for you if you're thinking about buying or selling in 2025.
And we'll also show you where today's home prices compare to the peak of the boom and where we might be heading next.
So make sure you stick around to the end, guys, because our outlook may just surprise you. And if you're thinking about moving to Fort Myers, be sure to check out our brand new relocation guide titled Living in Fort Myers by clicking on the link below.
Okay, so the first part that we're going to talk about is the market as a whole, which is the single family, condos, villas, all of it, with the exception of land and mobile homes, okay? Now, some of the numbers we have to look at on a monthly basis, like your active inventory, like how many homes are on the market at the end of a given month. So let's start off with closed sales. For the first quarter in Fort Myers, we ended up at 1,234 closed sales.
That's for the Q1 of 2025?
Right, for the first quarter of 2025. And that was 52% less than when our peak was, which was the second quarter of 2021 when there were 2,554 sales, and 44% less than the first quarter of 2021 when there were 2,209 sales. Now, what's interesting is if we go back to 2019 and compare it to then, because
that was a healthy market.
We consider that generally a healthy market.
Pre-pandemic years.
Pre-pandemic, right? So in 2019, there were 1,453 sales in the first quarter. So that represents a 15% decrease in sales this quarter versus 2019. So definitely less sales happening. And I think that's why the sellers are feeling the pain. So that takes us to active inventory. Active inventory is the number of listings on the market at the end of any given month. So this is looked at on a monthly basis. So if we look at April, there were 3,988 active listings in Fort Myers on the market. That's an 83% increase over April of 2022 when there were 701 active listings.
Well, we had no inventory then.
Right.
Now we have all the inventory.
That's right. So if we go back to 2019, normal market.
Okay.
There were 3,129 sales.
Okay.
So we still have 22% more inventory than we did in April of 2019.
I can see that, yes.
More competition for sellers out there for sure.
Things are a little slower moving.
So that brings us to supply of inventory. We finished at 7.6 months of inventory.
Months of inventory, guys, is an indicator of whether or not we're in a buyer's or a seller's market. So at 7.6 months of inventory, anything over 6 months is clearly a buyer's market. That's where we're at right now in Fort Myers.
Yep. Which takes us to what's all this mean in terms of prices. So as the market as a whole, well, the median sales price came in at $365,000, which is only 5.2% less than March of 2024, that first quarter. So what you can see by looking at this graph here is that prices have been kind of like just bobbling up and down since the second quarter of 2022. So every quarter they're right around that 350, 360, 370 mark, just bobbing up and down. But what's interesting is if you go back to the first quarter of 2022, home prices were 340, so we're a little bit less. And then if you go all the way back to 2019, the first quarter of 2019, the median sales price was $215,000, that means that home prices are still up 41% over.
From 2019 to 2025?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, 41%. That's incredible.
So pricing is holding pretty steady. I mean, it is going up and down a bit, but it's not going off the side of a cliff in Fort Myers.
Right, and I think, so you got a lot less closed sales, but yet the median sales price is hanging in there. And I think that's the indicator that a lot more higher priced homes are selling.
Okay.
So that's keeping the average higher. That takes us to list to close days. In other words, how long does it take for a home to sell from the time it's listed all the way to the closing date? And the average is 92 days, which is 50% more than it was the first quarter of 2022 when it was 46 days.
Because everything was selling in one day then. You know, it would hit the market and have multiple offers, right?
Sellers were getting their prices then, right?
Yes.
Yeah, sellers were getting whatever they wanted. It was kind of easy. Times are tough now. Now people are having to grind to get homes sold, right?
92 days doesn't sound bad to me. That sounds pretty normal. How does that stack up to previous years? Like, what was it in 2019?
93 days.
Okay.
Good thing you asked. So yeah, first quarter 2019 was 93 days, so pretty normal. Par for the
Back
course,
to
right?
a normal pace.
Yes, when it's priced right. So that takes us to the percent of the original price received, or how much is a seller getting from the original list price. And that ended up at 90.5%.
Okay.
And if you compare that to the first quarter of 2022, when it was the peak, sellers were getting whatever they wanted.
Yes.
They were getting 100.6% of asking price.
Okay.
Interesting, huh?
So that's a pretty good buyer's discount, almost 10% off asking price.
Yes. So everyone asks us, hey, that's great for the whole market, but let's talk more about, I want to know about single families since I live in a single family home. So let's give you those numbers real quick. Closed sales for the first quarter ended up at 704 closed sales, which is 41% less than the peak, which was the second quarter of 2021 when there were 1,191 sales. So quite a bit less sales than peak, 41% less. But if you compare it to 2019, there were 663 closed sales then in that first quarter of 2019. So
we're doing a little better.
Yeah, we're doing a little better than what we were in 2019 from a single family standpoint. So that's a good.
That's encouraging.
That is encouraging. That's a good thing. So no need to panic yet. And then active inventory. So how many homes were on the market? We finished at 1,820 single family homes on the market in the month of April, which represents a 33.4% increase over last April of last year when there was 1,364. So
I'm definitely feeling that. We definitely have more inventory.
yeah, and interesting, there was in March there was 1,668 sales. So April was a little bit less than that, but so there were probably about 1,500 sales or active listings in April of 2019. So
Which is not a bad thing if you're a buyer, right? Buyers have more choices right now. Buyers want inventory. They want to look at different homes and have options.
Absolutely. What's all that mean for single family median sales price? The median sales price for single family homes in Fort Myers is $474,340 for the first quarter. Which is 9% less than the peak of the second quarter, which was the second quarter of 2022,
Okay.
when it was $521,000. So prices for single-family homes has come down roughly about 10% since the peak, right? But if you go back to 2019 just to see how much prices have come up, it's kind of mind-boggling. I like to look at that. First quarter 2019, home prices have come up 38%, and the median sales price back then was under $300,000, probably around $290. It looks like I didn't write that part down.
Wow.
So that is your market update. So what does this mean? If you're a seller, well, I think home prices are going to continue to slide a little bit. I'm predicting around 10 to 15% over the next.
More?
Yeah, 10 to 15% more over the next year or so. And before we start to see that recovery cycle, before it starts to go back up. So if you're a seller and you need to sell, now's the time, because I think it's going to be less money over the next year or so. And the good news for you guys is that we have strategies to get you the highest price possible right now, but you don't want to be pricing your home like it's 2021 or 2022. You want to be pricing your home like it's 2025. You have to price your home right to sell right now. And you also want to put the right strategies in place to get your home sold. And we know those strategies, so you can give us a call for that.
Sure. And for buyers, have a really golden opportunity. You've got this window where there's more inventory on the market, so you have more homes to choose from. Prices have been coming down, so that's working in your favor again. And sellers are more negotiable right now because inventory is up. We're able to get a better deal, get a sweeter deal for our buyers. So if you've been on the fence and you've been thinking about buying, I think now is the time to jump off and make a move.
Absolutely.
If you want to know about the best neighborhoods in Fort Myers, how to time your move, and where you can still find some great off-market opportunities, go ahead and grab our brand new Living in Fort Myers Relocation Guide. It's packed with information on lifestyle, neighborhoods, waterfront living, and what to watch out for as the market shifts.
That's right. And you can call us, text us, email us anytime. We're real people living and working here in Southwest Florida. We'll help you navigate through all of this. So if this video helped you out, please hit that like button, that subscribe button, and hit that bell icon, and you'll be notified whenever we put out new content about living here in Southwest Florida.
Yeah, guys, and if you have any questions about living in Southwest Florida, feel free to reach out to us or go ahead and drop them in the comment section. If you're already a resident of Southwest Florida, we would love to hear what your favorite neighborhood or favorite thing to do in the area is. How do you spend your free time?
I'm Doug Lugers.
I'm Lona Lugers.
Thank you for watching.
We'll see you in paradise.